Good morning. Welcome to the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners issues and updates for November 12, 2024. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, would you please take the poll?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Online is Commissioner West. Commissioner West, are you there?
I am here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. In the room, Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner Shull.
Here.
Chair Smith.
Here. What's up, Gary?
Thank you, Chair. Would you please convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board?
I will recess as a Board of County Commissioners and convene as a North Clackamas County Parks and Recreation District.
This is request for consent agenda for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. Item 1, approval of an amendment with Phoenix Investment Group for a North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Maintenance Shop Lease Agreement. Amendment value is $221,923 for 2 years. Total agreement value is $337,135 for 3 years. Funding is through the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District General Fund. No county general funds are involved. Kia Selly is the director of the Parks District. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, Chair Smith and directors. My name is Kia Selly. I'm the District Director of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. In June of 2021, the Board approved the 4th extension to the lease agreement for NCPRD's Maintenance Operations Facility. This lease expires on December 31st of this year. Today, I'm here to seek board approval for the 5th extension of the lease agreement for another 2-year period beginning January 1st of 2025, and it also includes a 1-year option for a lease extension. The leased maintenance facility is in a central location near NCPRD's aquatic park, and it includes a large building which houses staff offices, a meeting space, and space for repair and storage of materials and supplies. It also includes a really nice fenced location for district vehicles and equipment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? See no objections. Thank you.
Item 2, approval of a permanent easement with Oak Lodge Water Services Authority for pipe installation across the trolley trail. Total agreement value is $1,100. Funding is through Oak Lodge Water Services Authority. No county general funds are involved.
Thank you, Gary. Next spring, Oak Lodge Water Services Authority will install a new sewer pipe underneath an NCPRD section of the trolley trail. For this work, the public utility requires a 991 square foot easement. The value of that easement is $1,100. Oak Lodge expects to actually bore underneath the trolley trail to install this new sewer line. But if they do disturb the existing paved surface, we will provide them with specifications for repaving that portion of the trail. Before that work actually begins, we will issue a special use permit that, in addition to this paving specification, will also include some of the details that will help maintain access for trolley trail users and safety during construction.
Great. We had quite a discussion this week on this. Questions or comments regarding this? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Thank you. Chair, would you please reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I'll recess as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners.
Next is request for consent agenda for the Board of County Commissioners. First, the Finance Department. Item 1, approval of a contract with Johnson Controls for new building automation engines. Total contract value is $171,957 for 6 months. Funding is through budgeted county general funds. Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director for the county. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Before you is a contract to replace panels for all of our HVAC systems throughout the county. This is just an upgrade. We would like to contract with Johnson Controls to do this over the next 6-7 months. It would be completed by the end of June of 25.
And don't we contract with them already?
We do. This is an additional scope of work for them.
And this is budgeted funds?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Shull.
Yes, good morning. Now, is this going to, this is a big expense. Is this going to result in energy savings and better control of our temperatures in our buildings?
I'd like to bring up Jeff Jorgensen, our Facilities Director. He can help answer that question.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is an upgrade to the system, so it should provide optimum operation for the building. So any of the older systems that it's just outdated, it'll bring them up. So yes,
Okay, so in this 171K, this is a 6-month contract, but we can expect this equipment to be serviceable for
Yes.
20 years, maybe?
Oh, yes. Well, they go through and technology costs and the
Yeah.
updates, but we'll go through for the next 6 months and update the various building systems to make sure that they're operational by the end of June.
So we'll get our investment back on energy savings, hopefully.
We believe so, yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Thank you. Next, Health, Housing, Human Services. Item 1, approval of an amendment to an intergovernmental revenue agreement with Lane County for online food handler training and testing. The amendment value is $110,000 for 2 years. Total agreement value is $485,000 for 6 years. Funding is through and from Lane County. No county general funds are involved. Rod Cook, Director of Health, Housing, Human Services. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. The Public Health Division has partnered with Lane County as the designated agent to allow Clackamas County residents access to online food handler training and access to convenient digital services while fulfilling state health requirements. Lane County will reimburse Clackamas County 80% of the fees collected for each test administered. This provides a sustainable revenue-generating model with no added cost to the county.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Item 2, approval of an amendment to an intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Health Authority for drug and alcohol prevention programming. Amendment value is $619,701 for 3 years. Total agreement value is increased to $2,526,687 for 10 years. Funding is through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, this one-time funding will enhance existing prevention programs, not replace them, and will also focus on training and developing the local prevention workforce. The majority of the funds will flow directly to local community organizations, ensuring a healthy, more resilient future.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 3, approval of a board order to accept the drug-free community grant for support of the Canby Prevention Coalition. Total award value is $625,000 for 5 years. Funding is through the Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Required match is through funded substance use prevention programming funds and $50,000 of budgeted county general funds.
Yes, this grant will enhance Canby's capacity to reduce youth substance use by improving existing programs and local partnerships. Expert staff will guide the community through evidence-based prevention planning, empowering stakeholders to take action. The objective of the project is to reduce youth substance use, increase awareness and policy changes for substance-free environments, and improve access for Latinx families to culturally relevant prevention education.
Questions or comments? Mr. Scholl.
Yeah, good morning. Is the Canby Center involved in administrating this?
It's not Canby Center who's
It's a
administrating.
different organization.
No, the coalitions are typically other entities.
Okay.
Seeing no objections, thank you.
Item 4, approval of an amendment to a revenue lease agreement with Genoa Healthcare for lease of clinical space in the Development Services Building. The amendment value is $1,394.25 for 3 months. Total agreement value is $16,767.56 for 18 months. Funding is through Genoa Healthcare. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, this amendment extends Genoa Healthcare's pharmacy lease at the DSB through June 30, 2025, ensuring pharmacy services continue without disruption while facilitating the transition to the new Lake Road facility. That Lake Road facility now is due to be completed by April 25, 2025.
They're still seeing people there, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 5, approval of an amendment to a grant agreement with the Oregon Housing and Community Services Department for administration of the Eviction Prevention and Diversion Program. Amendment value is $1,321,619 for 1 year. Total agreement value is $5,128,976 for 2 years. Funding is through the Oregon Housing and Community Services Department. No county general funds are involved.
Since its inception in January 2023, the Oregon Eviction Prevention and Diversion Program has served 496 households in Clackamas County through August 2024. The program offers short-term financial support to individuals and families at risk of eviction, primarily through rent assistance, utility payments, aiming to help individuals and families achieve long-term housing stability.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 6, approval of a subrecipient Blueprint Community Health Improvement Grant with the Oregon Firearm Safety Coalition to reduce firearm-related suicides. Total agreement value is $50,000 for 18 months. Funding is through Health Share of Oregon. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, Oregon has the 9th highest suicide rate in the nation, with firearms involved in over 50% of the cases, rising to nearly 70% among our veterans and over 80% in rural areas. Firearms are 90% lethal in suicide attempts. Research shows that firearm access, especially handguns, significantly increases suicide risk. Therefore, increasing the time and distance between a person at risk and a lethal means, like a firearm, can be a key factor in preventing the suicide. The Oregon Firearm Safety Coalition is working to normalize secure firearm storage, encouraging gun owners to store firearms off-site or dismantle them during mental health crisis. This creates a critical barrier against impulsive suicide attempts and fosters lasting behavioral change.
Questions, comments?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So, Rod, could you perhaps expand a little bit, other than locking? I mean, can you get into more detail? I mean, it seems like there's a requirement to lock up guns for everyone, right? If someone's struggling with a mental health issue, or they're suicidal, or have signs of being suicidal, what can this group, or legally anyone can do? I mean, is there some detail here I'm not reading?
I don't think there's a legal thing, but there's this opportunity being afforded to families. Say if we knew something was going on in my family, I could either have the training to dismantle a firearm or have a place to take that firearm while my son or daughter or whomever family member might be in trouble or having a mental health crisis. So that's pretty much just, and this basically works with gun owners. This is what the beauty of this particular coalition is. It's gun owners, it's people who work at shooting firearms, they go out to clubs and all that, working with the social workers who typically are at opposition on these type of issues, but they all work together to agree to a way to just make us home safer when it's that way. Some law enforcement agencies will allow you to take your firearms there, but I'd have to get that more information for you in terms of the sites that will accept the guns and those type of things, and for how long and what it is you're doing when you're handing those over.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Scholl.
Yeah. Good morning, Mr. Cook. So who in the county is going to actually do the legwork to implement this?
The coalition, there's a coalition of folks who are coming together to set up an initiative to, do training, get information out and those type of things.
And they're going to work with our county mental health personnel to get a link between a potential problem and the OFSC. Is that right?
Yes. And if we were to call 911 or 211, any of our help services, all those folks would be trained on where to send somebody or link them to the help where they might need it.
Okay. Well, good luck with this program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who determines, and how is it determined, that a person is in a mental health crisis, therefore they have their firearm taken away and/or dismantled?
I'd say it's going to be, if we look at it realistically, it's a family member. It's not someone outside of the home or judge or any. There's no outside source. This is really internal to a family sees something, sees the need, and then has now a place to go. It's the person or the person's family member closest to them. Anyone who has access to that gun. You can't have a city or law enforcement step in for any reason on this.
Well, wasn't there a law passed in Oregon, I don't remember, by the legislature or an initiative to the citizens that allowed for a diagnosis that would, so first of all, Commissioners, I'm going to set this to the side because I haven't read enough on here to see, I see this resolution, but it's the first time I've seen it. And I'm concerned about this being used mandatory to take away guns where there may be a misdiagnosis. And if it's a family member who thinks a person is mentally ill, that could be problematic, coming from a family who, as at times, we all can be volatile, we all don't necessarily agree with each other. I'm concerned about the implementation of this. Gary?
Commissioner West would like to speak when you're done.
Okay. Going forward, I just need more questions answered, because at the time that this was considered on a statewide basis, it was hugely controversial, because they were using the arm, or let's say the club, of a mental illness to compensate firearms. I don't like it. There's a lot of people who don't like that as well. So, Rod, I think we're going to pull this until I can have some more study on it. Maybe other board members want to also. Commissioner West?
Thank you, Chair. Rod, is this fully voluntary by those that are the actual gun owners that might be having a mental health issue?
Can you repeat that? You're a little muffled. You ask the question again.
Is this fully voluntary for those that might be having a mental health issue? The program, so somebody that is struggling, working with their family together in tandem, voluntarily agrees to have their firearms secured until they're able to be stabilized, and then at any point in time when they're stabilized, they get repossession of their second, they're not really giving up their Second Amendment rights, they're just working through avenues to get stabilized mentally. Am I understanding that correct?
That's how I understand it. I'm having Philip Mason Joyner, Director of Public Health, come up and see if he has any additional
Welcome.
insight.
Good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. Thanks for the question. This agreement is $50,000 specifically for education, training around mental health, suicide prevention, and how to safely secure firearms. And the $50,000 part of it is also to provide the actual storage, the gun-safe cases that we distribute out in the community. So that's the scope of what this project is involved. It's all voluntary. It's to partner with this coalition, going out in the community to provide some education for anyone who would like to learn more about this important topic.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying, Philip, on this, and you've always been very clear when you've been before this board, but there's the mental health component up here of a possible misdiagnosed, undiagnosed, diagnosed from somebody who's not a professional, and then professionals even have a problem with that, as Rod Cook was alluding to. That's my issue on this. I don't disagree that firearm education is something we all should do, and we should secure firearms in our homes, just for if there's small children around. So that's not my issue. My issue is you throw in the mental health component, that a family member can say, Joe can say, Susie has a mental health issue, and therefore, I think that we should have this program come into our home. That's what I'm hearing. Now, if I'm misconstruing that, you need to correct me, but I need more information on this. Thank you. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, so to that point, I'm hearing you say it's voluntary from the person who's having an issue or a mental health issue or behavior, or being suicidal. It's their decision. It's not the family's decision.
Yes, Commissioner, these are general community trainings at gun ranges with folks in the community. Anyone's invited to learn about the risks and receive education on what they can do to create a safer home and to receive the physical cases for free. That's the scope of what this project is all about.
But I thought it was twofold. The other part was that the gun could be voluntarily relocated outside the home, right?
If an individual chooses and would like to do that, they'll be provided with education on how to make that happen.
Okay, so it's voluntary 100% by the person in question.
Yeah, and what I've been alluding to is what I think happens in reality. I'm gonna just be transparent with you there. If I thought my child was depressed, or if I had a brother who was going through a divorce and he was angry or something, any of those type of things, that's what I meant by a family member stepping in and saying, hey, I think I need to remove these guns out of our premises for a time being or whatever. This gives us the opportunity. This gives me a place to take that to, other than hand it off to another friend or whatever. this would be an organized way to do that type of work. So that's the reality I'm talking about. It's not a law. It's not anybody being able to step in to make you do anything, but I think it's our natural reaction to when we're seeing somebody in crisis. And I've seen some judges during divorce courts and all that also, or if you have abuse in abuse cases, where I've seen some mandating of judges to say, we want all your firearms until till this case is solved. That's when somebody's been accused of domestic violence type of things.
Yeah.
But this has more to do with suicide in the moment.
Well, I certainly, know that a family member or family members can have a concern about, and, a member of their family in that crisis. And every case is different, right?
Yeah.
And there's different levels of crises or their impairment, whatever it may be, whether it's permanent or it's temporary. So I can see the logic behind this. I guess I too just want to have a better understanding of their success, right? What a remote location is, what that looks like.
Yeah, one more week of study isn't going to hurt anything on this issue. Commissioner West, you're up.
Thank you, Chair. As long as this is at this point voluntary and this isn't the state stepping in and doing any overreach, I think I'm supportive because you have community members that are closely connected to an individual that's not stable, helping them be in a safer space, get stabilized, and then all the while they have a higher likelihood of having access to to suicide, to actually fulfilling or attempting suicide. And all the while, their community members are making sure that they're okay. And then once they're stabilized, there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to continue, with that, firearm in their home or whatever. But it gives somebody, through the counsel of their family and their personal community with their own personal decision, the ability to maybe get in a safer space. And so
Okay.
for that, I have no problem with it.
Okay, we're going to bring it back, Commissioner West. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, when we bring it back, one more thing I'd like a little bit of clarity on is, if you identify someone who's in crisis, a family member who's in crisis, what other services can we avail to them that are unrelated to the gun, really to get them the care they need, right? So, again, having some experience in this, I know that there are situations in which a family might realize that that person needs to be perhaps civilly committed, right? But our laws in this state do not really allow that, right? I'm talking about extreme cases, right? Not everyone. So therefore, I'd certainly like to know what companion services are made available in these cases, right? That they're fully, so that there's, again, in concert, and as well as any suggestions or tools that would be could be done legislatively to help in situations like these, which we currently don't have today. Because I know, again, experience with myself and families, a family member of my family, as well as friends in the same situation, is that there's times we feel that they need to be, whether it's even temporary commitment, right? That they need some time. And if we don't have all those services available and simply this, it seems like it's a missed opportunity at the very least.
I'm just glancing through the documents, and I don't know that this program is intended for additional services, but you can come back and answer that question.
And just in terms of the clarity you're needing, you want to know the work of the coalition, that it's not leading to anything mandatory. Okay.
And who determines if a person is in mental health crisis? Obviously, it's their behavior. Okay, but is it a true mental health crisis, or is it something else?
Okay.
That's my issue.
Yeah, and one other little thing, again, an experience, is that sometimes maybe the family is not totally equipped to understand the needs of the person, right? It takes a mental health professional or a psychologist or a psychiatrist, or medication and all the above. So I think that's the imperative for me, to better understand and make sure that if the family's not equipped and they're taking these actions, what do they really need? Because this is more of the crisis about the individual, not necessarily the gun.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my issue, too. Commissioner, is it West?
Yes.
Go ahead, Commissioner West.
You're on mute,
I don't,
Commissioner.
yeah, I was taking my hand down. I don't have anything at this time.
Oh, okay, all righty. Yeah, we'll review this, Rod.
Okay.
Just send over some documents to us all, thank you.
Thank you.
Gary, what's
All right,
next?
so pulling number 6. Next, item 7, approval of a subrecipient grant agreement with the Little Blue Store for a healthy retail pilot program to end tobacco sales. Agreement value is $20,000 for 10 months. Funding is through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved.
Yeah, this is a pilot project, is based on healthy retail initiatives implemented through the United States. It's an innovative, data-driven approach that targets the root causes of tobacco-related illness and economic loss in Clackamas County. By removing tobacco from retail environments, we are not just improving public health, but creating a scalable model for the future. I don't know if you saw this ran on television a little bit, our article on this. And basically what this really is small stores this pilot would be replacing where they used to sell cigarettes with fruits and vegetables. So they're just trying to create different alternatives for the people coming into that store, giving them the healthy alternative as opposed to basically using tobacco as their way to make money in that community.
Commissioner Scholl.
So that's it.
Okay, Mr. Cook. A specific retail establishment, and they would receive $20,000 in exchange for removing all tobacco products from the store, right?
It's all, right?
That's right. So, but of the, I don't know, 1,000 places in Clackamas County where you can buy tobacco products, we're giving $20,000 to one establishment to remove the products out of that store, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't understand how this is going to be really effective. I mean, if somebody wants to buy a cigarette, they can go down the street. You know, the idea of removing tobacco products and attracting somebody to a healthier product, that's a great idea, but I don't see that this is practical.
So this is pilot, and so in a pilot, that's what you're trying to see, the effectiveness of what it is you're trying. I grew up with a corner store, what we called our corner store, and it was it was a liquor store, but it was our corner store. And so when I had to get some milk or whatever, that's where my parents sent me up to. So in terms of the socialization of certain products, whether it be beer, wine, tobacco, that won't be available in this small community when people are doing those quick runs, because he sells all kind of other groceries. He just doesn't have any fresh vegetables at this time. So you're right. This is a microcosm test of a bigger trial, I guess, of what could happen if less tobacco products were available.
Okay, well, the Oregon Health Authority sure has a lot of money. But thank you, Rod.
Yeah,
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm going to pull this one, too. Yeah, I don't like smoking. I grew up with smokers, and I abhor it. But so unless a higher authority than us decides they want to make alcohol sales totally illegal in this state, who are we to say a business must remove a product from their store, even if it's a pilot program? And let me finish, because you'll want to hear what my objections are. I know you will. Okay? And these stores have been regulated and regulated and regulated. And now we're to the point, we told the stores, you must lock up your tobacco products. And where do they put it? They put it in lock and key behind the counter in the cash register. So when people come in, it's easy access to pull it out and give it to them. Now we're saying you have to totally remove it from your stores. So I'm having a little bit of problem with this, and I don't like smoking whatsoever. I'm talking about free market and the ability of the stores, the small stores in Oregon to do this. Washington and Multnomah County, as you know, has tried to eliminate vaping. There's a bill in the legislature for the next section to remove menthol flavoring from all tobacco products. So we're just going like this. We're going like this, like this, like this to the businesses, under the guise that we're the health authority and we know better than everybody else in the world. And I have a lot of trouble with the Big Brother attitude of some of this stuff going forward. I'm going to pull it for more study on this going forward. I agree with Commissioner Schultz, $20,000 for one store. And then what are you going to say? Of course, you know what the data's going to say? I predict the data's going to come back and say, oh yeah, tobacco sales are less. Well, duh, because they don't have any in their store. And why would we spend $20,000 to do this? These questions are rhetorical, but Rod, if you want to have a shot at it, go
Yeah,
ahead.
just one point of clarity, that the store itself is who applied to the state, but the store doesn't deal directly with, the state doesn't deal directly with the store. We're the health authority, so that's why the funds came to us. So we didn't initiate this, the store did with the state. They won a grant. We're just the conduit for sending the money through.
But you didn't
So
say that in the beginning.
I know I didn't, so that's why I'm saying it now, so you could be
You
clear
should
on
have
what's
said that in the
happening.
beginning, Rod.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
And so then, what I also want to know is at the end, the store is going to say, yeah, I'm against tobacco products. And then what do we do with that data? We have a one-off in Clackamas County, one store compared to the 5,000 stores that are in Clackamas County that says, yeah, we don't like tobacco sales. Am I right? Or if I'm wrong, tell me.
I don't know what
Okay,
what they'd say.
Commissioner Savas.
Two things. First of all, point of order. Gary, to pull an item, what action is necessary? I mean, pulling it for a week for study, that's one thing. Hasn't been stated here on this one. So what is the proper order? I mean, any one commissioner pull it for an indefinite period of time? Or does it take a consensus of this group to pull it for an indefinite period of time?
My interpretation as the chair, who gets to set the meeting agendas, is pulling this item from consent, not just for next week or this week, not forever. But I would want to hear from at least two of you to put it back on if you disagree with the chair. Part of that.
And my intent is just to pull it for a week until I have more information. Because these last two items, I think, have the potential for really big policy decisions for the future. That's why. And I want to understand it better.
Yeah, well, that was the clarity I was looking for. If it's simply for a week for more information, then I'm not going to quarrel with that. But it didn't appear that was what was necessarily on the table, but I appreciate that clarification. So just to but just to share my thoughts on this, if it is a pilot, I'm okay with it. We'll see how it works, and that's what it's for. That's what a pilot is all about. I've certainly had more people in my family die from smoking cancer than I have from mental health issues or suicidal issues by far. So it's certainly not a healthy activity, and it costs our society a lot of money. So if it's totally voluntary and upon a pilot basis, then I think it's worth the experience and information we can get from it. So
Thank you.
That's where I'm at on it.
Thank you. Point of clarification, Gary. Any commissioner can pull an item. It's just not the chair.
At your Thursday business meeting, that's the case. During the actual meeting itself, you can pull it from consent to bring it to a discussion item.
Okay.
Chair,
Commissioner
I
Schultz.
have one more question. Gentlemen, this is a pilot program, but is it the Oregon Health Authority intention that if this particular store, this retail establishment, after the 10-month trial period says, yeah, okay, I would like to continue receiving dollars from our health authority for not selling tobacco products? Is it the OHA intent to then be able to provide money to many, hundreds, 1,000 establishments in Clackamas County that would opt to receive direct money, which is essentially a profit for not having to deal with tobacco products? So is that the intent? To use taxpayer dollars to essentially remove tobacco products from the store shelves? It seems to me like a rather expensive and ineffective process because, again, unless all establishments, and we're not going to apparently get rid of tobacco products period, end of sentence. It seems like it's just it seems like it's an idea that lacks practicality.
Yeah, and I don't know if the funds are used for the actual buying of fruits and vegetables, or if it's used for creating opportunity to buy refrigeration for that store that never had refrigeration so that it can do the fruits and vegetables. Those are the type of things I don't know. And I think, so the state, I think if they're doing a pilot, they have something in mind. So we could be very transparent about when there's a pilot, they're trying to see if this works, if this would, in their minds, this would create a healthier community. In the owner's mind of this establishment, he thinks it would create a healthier community. He's the one to apply it again. So it's like, I don't know what the state is up to, but you have a business owner who's trying to switch what they're selling to their community.
Okay, so I look forward to more information on this also.
Thank you, Commissioners. Okay, thank you very much. We'll just send this over. Some stuff. Thank you.
All right, so to clarify, pulling items 6 and 7 from this week's business meeting, you are actually not meeting next week due to the Association of Oregon Counties Conference, so this will come back the following week, which is 2 weeks from now. But we'll bring it back to you at that time. We'll provide more information to you via email. If any commissioner wants to talk to staff prior to that, we'll arrange that as well. Moving on, item 8. Approval of a personal services contract amendment with Ant Farm for rural homeless outreach and inclement weather response. The amendment value is $266,756 for 7 months. Total contract value is now $2,034,462.84 for 2 years. Funding is through the Governor's State of Emergency due to homelessness state funding. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, this amendment includes 2 key factors of focus. Direct outreach. This is a funding shift from pass-through to direct funding of work that Ant Farm has already been accomplishing, streamlining their operation, enhancing capacity. They used to receive the money from city, used to go to city and then to Ant Farm. Now it's going to go directly to Ant Farm. The other piece is an engagement of homeless households and enhance inclement weather response updates, the scope of the work to focus on staffing and operational support during extreme weather events. This is where we've experienced some weather events now, and we're really trying to bolster up exactly what happens on that 24, 48-hour, 72-hour timeline. In other words, we want staffing 24/7 when they're doing these things. So that's where these dollars would be shifted to.
Commissioner Shaw?
So, okay, all right. This $2 million and change, $2,034,000. What percentage of that is going to be for actual overhead administration of the program at Ant Farm? And what part of it is actually going to pay for rental assistance or transitional housing for people who are homeless in the East County area?
I don't have that in front of me. Typically, we hold people anywhere from 10 to 20%, probably more around 18% on the admin overhead. This is not, these dollars is $266,000 is the program money. So I would assume that very little of that would be pushed over into admin because that budget's already set. This is just moving money from, getting it from one entity. It was receiving the money, but not from us. Now it's going to be in one contract coming off from us. We were giving it to Sandy and moving it over.
Okay. And one more question. I remember last year, 18 months ago, thereabouts, Ant Farm had some problems with rental assistance. Do you recall that? With exceeding the maximum authorized period of time? Has that problem been resolved?
Yes. Our staff have worked diligently with them on that issue, and it's corrected.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 9, approval of a personal services contract with Community Vision to provide case management for individuals eligible for intellectual and developmental disabilities services. Total contract value is $400,576 for 2 years. Funding is through Metro Supportive Housing Services funding. No county general funds are involved.
Through this contract, Community Vision Incorporated will deliver essential housing navigation, case management, and benefits coordination for up to 40 individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities in the first year, expanding to 50 individuals in year 2.
Great. Questions or comments? See no objections.
Thank you, Rod.
Okay.
Next, Department of Transportation and Development, Item 1, approval of a regional flexible funds allocation grant application for Clackamas Industrial Area Improvements and the Southeast Jennifer Street multi-use path. Total grant value is $7,228,290 for 4 years. Funding is through Metro. A match of $827,310 is funded through the County Road Fund. No county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development. Go ahead, please.
Chair Smith and Commissioners, hi, how's it going? No comments about the voice. There's a long story behind that, and I apologize for it. We are here to request your authorization to apply for these funds through Metro. Essentially, every 3 years, Metro Council decides how to spend their regional allotment of federal transportation dollars, and they develop programs around that. So they basically identify the criteria in which you can apply and be considered for these funds. And as you can see from this request, we're swinging for the fences in regards to the amount of money we're looking for. Essentially, the improvements we're looking to fund are pedestrian and bicycle gaps on Jennifer Street. Jennifer is a major arterial that goes through our industrial area of Clackamas County. I'm hoping you're understanding all this. If not, I can come whisper. But essentially, we're looking to get funding to fill those gaps. There is a match that'll be provided through Road Fund. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have after I cough.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments? Commissioner Scholl.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Johnson. Always good to see you. And, I can't help but wonder at this total grant value of $7.2 million for 4 years, and we're only talking about a small area, pieces of Jennifer Street. And $827,000 of match money coming from our county road fund. I drive Jennifer Street a lot. And I'm wondering, the priority for this project, exactly where did this come from? Because it seems to me, Dan, that this would be a low priority project with all the things we have going on.
Well, so the priority is as you drive it,
Yeah.
you know all the traffic that is on that particular roadway.
Yeah.
And that traffic takes different forms. It is vehicular traffic, it is large freight, it is et cetera. And so we have essentially a transportation system plan and a bike walk plan that highlights gaps in our systems. And we take that data from those two studies and look at grant options that are available. So we're
Okay.
not dictating we apply for where grants are available, and we curtail projects to that availability. We don't dictate how the grant requirements are established.
Okay.
So if there was a grant out there that said, hey, I want you to go build a bridge, we'd be applying for a bridge that would meet that criteria.
All right, okay, I understand, thank you.
Commissioner Salas.
Well, Dan, I know your voice doesn't sound very pleasant or easy on you, so
Ouch.
I'm not going to ask you any questions.
Ouch.
Well, sorry, all I meant, they came out wrong, I'm not sure. So basically, I'm going to be nice and not really ask you a question, but I just want to get on the record that when the Veterans Village was opened, this had nothing to do with your department. I won't say a promise, but it was assumed that we would be offering transportation from day one, and that has not happened to the Veterans Village and wherever they needed to go. So I do know that there's arrangements being made here and there to get people to care, so I know there's that, but there's not a regularly occurring shuttle that goes to and from, at least according to some folks I talked to a couple weeks ago. And the price never seems to amaze me on these projects, so, maybe an opportunity to better understand that, but certainly the sidewalk issue and knowing that piece of territory and the road curves through there are the railroad tracks, which is actually a spur, right? It's a railroad spur. So I know the need, and I do know the activity and opportunities to connect onto 212 from 122nd is important. So connectivity is great, stunned by the price.
Yeah.
But if it's a grant, it's a grant, and it's not necessarily come out of our coffers.
And I should mention, and I can get more detail should you request it, but there are improvements to that railroad crossing that you referred to as well that are escalating some of that cost associated with it.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Just make a comment, a $7 million grant Our match is $827,000 out of county road fund.
Yes, that's correct.
Seeing any objections? None, thank you.
Your voice gets better, Dan.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
That is a request for consent agenda. All of these items, except for H3S number 6 and 7, will be on this Thursday's business meeting agenda for your final action. Next, courthouse construction update. Nancy Bush, County Operating Officer, will present, and she has a guest who she'll introduce.
Welcome, please introduce yourselves.
Good morning, Commissioners. I am Nancy Bush. I am the County Operating Officer and also the Project Manager for the County Courthouse. And today I have John Kinderchuk with me, and he is the Project Manager. So we're going to give you an update on what's going on in the courthouse. There's not as much going on as the outside, as you can see, but there's a lot going on in the inside. So we have a few slides for you, and I'll turn it over to John.
Welcome, John, go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll start off by saying that we're 28 months into a 36-month construction schedule, the last 4 months of which will be the test drive. So we're still on track to do a handover to the county on May 1st, 2025. I'm going to start today by speaking to the current design and construction status. So we are 75% complete our interior finishes, 75% complete our elevators. Our furniture, fixtures, and equipment are at a 60% completion right now. Commissioning has started. We're at roughly about 40% complete. And our site finish is about halfway point. So as we get through the winter season and touch base with spring again, you'll start to see all the trees and all that type of stuff get in before our turnover date. I'm going to draw attention to some of our major milestones, which include a temporary occupancy permit that we're going to achieve in February to allow the county to come in to the building and actively set up their computers, printers, monitors, all the things that they'll need to function in a functioning courthouse. That will be followed by facilities management coming in, which is Honeywell in this case, to start test driving the building and getting acquainted with the services and performance criteria. That will be followed by substantial completion, which is earmarked for April 3rd of 2025, and then of course followed by occupancy readiness, which we're planning on May 1st, 2025. 4 months pass of test driving, and then final completion is August 29th, 2025. I brought some photos today to speak where we're at from the exterior and interior. So this is a northwest perspective looking at the front of the building and how that will attach to the existing campus thoroughfares for walkways and bikeways. This is a northeast perspective that shows you the retention ponds that we're looking at, which are all part of the pumping system that keeps water away from the building for all seasons of the year. And then moving forward, we look at the southeast perspective. You start to see a lot of tarmac here that includes the North Parkade, which now has a photovoltaic array on top of it. In layman's terms, I guess we're really talking about solar panels. So this has evolved in the last couple of weeks. And then the parkade that you see that's has a perimeter of brick wall is the judge's parking. This is, of course, followed by the southwest perspective. They're looking at the front corner of the building on the north side. This is in the north parking lot looking at the building itself. This is the front of the building. You start to see some of the pavement work and sidewalk work that connects the existing campus to the front doors. This is an interior shot of where the public and private entrance to the building will be. This particular area now has X-ray machines and scanners that are sitting there and getting ready for commissioning. This is a photo of the site services area where the public will access information. This is a typical photo of the front vestibule area with the staircase that goes up to the mezzanine level. This is a typical photo of the hallway that provides the public access to the various courtrooms. And this is a typical photo of one of our courtrooms that's now being put together, commissioned and reviewed for deficiencies and that type of thing, so the final stretch. And today we're emphasizing that we're on the last legs of this project. We're concentrating on commissioning and closeout right now. So a lot of our efforts are in meeting with the county to have them better understand how the turnover process is going to work, how facilities management, operations and maintenance will segue and transition from the design build period to the actually facilities management period. And things are still on track and going well.
Great, wonderful presentation. I'm sure commissioners have comments. Commissioner Salas, you're up first.
Yeah, I have a less technical structure question and just a curious timeline when you think we might have those piles of dirt across the way gone.
Well, actually, funny you asked, so that's sort of the next move. As we finish some of that paving, you're going to see a whole bunch more backfill, specifically into the front and rear areas of the building, so the west and east sides, because the north and south are now tarmacked and they're parking lots. So Mount Beaverton will slowly disappear as we move towards the winter.
Oh, so it'll be gone by?
Neutral, yep. Gone by, I would say probably it's springtime, so March or April is when you're going to see it all gone.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
thanks.
Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, good morning. It's great to see the building coming up. It's looking great. How is Oregon City doing on your inspection and responding to your timeframes for inspections?
Wonderfully, everything is
Oh, okay.
going
Good.
as planned.
Good.
Yes.
Recently, we understood that there was some labor issues with one of the glazing unions. Has that been resolved?
It's an informational picket that they're doing,
Okay.
which has no mass effect on construction or
okay.
any of the trades and/or the city inspectors crossing the line to participate in the design build.
Okay. And you don't have any other kind of indicators that there would be any kind of, between now and May, any other labor issues?
Nothing forecasted, no.
Okay. And what about availability of materials? Any?
Nothing to speak of.
Okay, good.
Our
Well, good.
procurement plan is in good order. Any, what we'd call high-risk procurement items are sitting on our site right now.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, thank you.
Anything that came from overseas is here and
Yeah.
ready to be installed.
Okay, great. Oh, I appreciate your work.
Thanks.
Thank you. What about the parking lots? Will they be done when we assume occupancy?
100%.
I look out my window and I see the one next to the jail, and it's quite impressive, and it's just been fun to watch that proceed.
Yeah, and that is a separate contract. PCL is not doing that particular parking lot, but yes, it is on track to be open as well in time for the courthouse opening.
Good, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you for this very informative briefing on our new courthouse.
Thank you, Chair
All right,
Smith.
thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
What's next, Gary?
Next is user fees for county electric vehicle charging stations. Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director, will present, along with Jeff Jorgensen, Facilities Division Director. There's a memo in your packet. Go ahead, please.
Good morning again, Chair and Commissioners. Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director. This morning, we're bringing to you a proposal to charge for electric vehicle charging stations that we have throughout the county on our property. So in 2009, our Board of County Commissioners directed staff to begin installing these in for the county and also for the county's use as well. So we have 23 installed over the last 4 years. They've been going in about 6 to 8 each year. We have 23 currently. We have 6 more on the docket to be installed. We do budget the installations through our capital improvement plan fund that we have, so those are paid with general dollars, and they're approximately $10,000 to $15,000 each to install.
Correct.
Correct. And so what we're asking for today is for consideration to recoup some of those expenses that we have on a monthly basis. So the charging is roughly about 5.75 hours per month, and so we'd like to recoup those for, with charging for the PGE charges, as well as there's maintenance, ongoing maintenance with each of these charging stations. And so that would compile to about 43 cents per kilowatt hour. We also asking for a unique charge. We have discovered that we have folks that park, charge, and then are gone for hours at a time taking up that space, that there would be a $2 an hour fee post full charge. So we ask for your consideration and have additional information if I haven't covered enough for you already. Thank you.
Yeah, I find this really interesting. Yeah, I like the policy. Frankly, I think users should pay. I don't think it's up to the taxpayers to supplement somebody else's type of car they drive. I just think this is fine. The county has obviously been supplementing this for many, many years. But I do have I'm curious, on 2009, you said we started installing these stations.
I'm sorry, that was when
2009?
we were given, 2009 is when we were given the directive by the Board of County Commissioners to start the installation. Unfortunately, it's been just in the last 4 years, we put this plan together to identify the chargers, locations, and installations.
So it's really only been 4 years?
Correct.
Okay, good. Because I was curious, you don't have to answer this. What happened in 2009? I don't remember too many electric cars back in 2009. I could be wrong. But on that, so that's interesting, 15,000 each. And we are paying 15,000 each through our capital improvement plan.
That was a one-time for the installation, correct, 10 to 15,000.
Okay, Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, overall comment and then a question, I guess, and that is that we have federal and state mandates where it's going to phase out fossil fuels, 10 years or so or more, depending on what state you're in. But nonetheless, it's other states are far more aggressive in any kind of building permit to, that's a requirement today that you will have X amount, and I don't know what that ratio is per se, but X amount of charging stations per building or parking lot. So, I would argue that if the state is going to try to do this in 10 years, that we need to implement that, not just for the public sector, but also for the private sector to some degree, but also recognizing that other means, electric, we don't have the capacity to do all of that, nor the funds to do all of that. So I understand the moderation, but I just want to make that overall statement. So my question is, and I didn't have any idea that Nancy would be leaving just yet, but my question is, how many additional places, charging stations, are being constructed at the courthouse?
I can answer that question,
Yeah,
Commissioner.
I think it's on here.
They're supposed to have 4 double-headed units, so it's 8 parking spaces in parking lot J, just north of the courthouse.
Okay, and not this parking lot out here?
No, we've actually worked with PGE, and we're talking to them about putting it in. We can, if it comes to fruition, you can go ahead and do core drilling and put some in there, but as of right now, there's no charging stations over there.
Is there infrastructure being put in underground so that it's easily expandable?
We have electrical power over there, and you could put it in.
Okay, but the underground is not being done.
Not at this point.
It's not being expandable, okay?
No.
I think that's a missed opportunity, in my opinion. Okay, that's my answer to my question.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, good morning. So this additional 43 cents, a total charge of 43 cents per kilowatt hour, that's going to cover your operating expense and a maintenance set aside for replacing components when they wear out?
And we also have a contract for that maintenance work.
Okay.
So yes, the 43 cents, we believe, is the middle of the road. As you see in your staff report, across the country, there's 40 cents to 45 cents. And we're not certain that will even completely cover full recovery of those costs, but at least be better than what we have now. and it's a good start to see how the plan works going forward.
Okay. So you have 23 charging stations, but you only have an average of 18.16 charges per day of those.
That's what we currently have.
Okay, so you think that's going to go up? Utilization will be increasing over time as EV?
I believe when we have the courthouse up here, you'll have the 8 there, but you'll also have considerable around PSB and DSB. We have public and fleet vehicles on both PSB and DSB. We'll have the new ones at the courthouse.
Okay.
We'll have a higher usage for sure.
Okay, and then I have a question about the idle time charge of $2 per hour. When somebody charges their EV, they put a credit card in, okay? That charges a card, but how do you deal with the idle time?
Basically, when the technology is there now, when you go ahead and you put in your credit card, and a lot of times it's just attached to your phone, that it actually will tell you, people that are charging their cars, it'll say, charge is 75%, 80%, 90%, so they know, that at 9:15 it's going to be 100%. Well, at 9:15 it's 100%. You let it sit there per hour, you're paying 2 hours, but it's in their phone and the technology supports that.
Okay, so Mr. Jones is charging his car. He gets a report that his car is at 100%. He goes down and unplugs it. That ends the idle time, but he's busy and his parking lot's full, and he sits there. Meanwhile, Mrs. Smith wants to get in there and she can't. Now, how does that work?
We've actually discussed that exact
you have?
scenario, said that people will actually pull them out and let them sit kind of in the connector.
Right.
We have to kind of monitor that, and if we find violators, we will actually they'll terminate them, that we won't allow them to charge anymore. But if somebody who's trying to go ahead and game the system, we're totally aware that that is going to happen.
Okay, well, good luck with that. Thank you.
Commissioner West.
That got to one of my questions, because you also see people that have EVs just park in the EV spot and actually never charge.
Right.
They don't even they don't even like partially pull it up, they just don't ever plug in. I absolutely think that, fundamentally that people who drive EV cars need to pay their fair share, and they don't. They use the roads, they use the services, they use the infrastructure, and they get a sweetheart deal in many cases. I don't think that that's sustainable, and I think we see issues around that throughout the state. Ms. Comfort, I'm curious about what we do need to charge, not maybe cover our costs, but actually to stay in the black with this project. I don't think that we should be subsidizing this, and people want to use that service should fully pay for it. You said you don't think we're going to fully pay for it, and why not?
That's a good question, and I don't want us to subsidize the program either if we don't have to. And why I ask if we can start with the 43 cents per kilowatt hour is so we can run the program to see what the actual costs are coming in at. And say in a year or 6 months, we could evaluate what are the costs that we're having versus what is the return that we're getting. And so as the earlier question, will usage go up? Will it stay the same? Will it go down? We can have it in a period of time where we can monitor this.
We know right now that the cost that we're going to incur from PGE for the power is relatively, it's between 12 and 18 cents. It matters on the size of the building, the schedule of the building. But we're going for like 15 cents per kilowatt hour. And then there's about the maintenance for the charge point unit where they go ahead and the technology there is about 15,000. Well, that's another 20 cents. So you got 15 cents, 20 cents. We haven't had any vandalism on our units so far. We haven't had any problems about changing out cords. If it's a problem with the charging unit and from ChargePoint, like Elizabeth said, that is actually handled by ChargePoint to go ahead and the technology, the screen, that kind of stuff. If there's anything, somebody would cut the cord and we have to replace it. Right now, we said with the 43, it's about 8 to 10 cents, so we believe we're going to be covered. So we have a margin of money available to that, the 8 to 10 cents at 43 cents. So we believe if we have to adjust it at that point. But we're covered right now for total usage, total cost to ChargePoint, and then some maintenance charges.
Thank you, that answers my question, thank you.
Going back to what Commissioner Savos was talking about on parking lot J, it's going to be covered, right? Is that parking lot going to be covered?
No.
Oh, it's not, okay.
There's no covered parking in parking lot. Oh, excuse me, Jay, sorry.
Jay, yes.
Jay, you're going to have 2 rows of covered parking
And-
with solar panels,
Yeah, I was
yes.
going to say solar panels. So
Yes.
the solar panels, are they going to be powering these power stations, or is that used for someplace else,
Used for the building.
for the building?
For the building, yes.
Okay.
And the county is paying for the utility charges, so that basically helps the usage for the building itself.
And there's solar panels on the courthouse, too?
Correct.
Okay. Regarding the federal mandates, I heard today regarding the federal mandates for electric cars, they're going to go away. So I don't know that we will be receiving any subsidies from the federal government if the mandate is going to go away. I think, I heard that today, Paul. I'm just speculating going forward with that. Interesting piece of news. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, well, that's a conversation I'm sure we're all going to be witnessing with the investment that's being made coast to coast, actually globally. I don't know how they are going to reconcile it. It's bigger than us. But my question is, I appreciate trying to get the cost recovery. It's certainly not going to get recovery for the capital investment, clearly. That I get. But I would love to understand for my own purposes in the role that I have in transportation, kind of get a better idea of how much those spaces are being utilized today, and do you have the data on that, what the historical usage of that is? And I could see what I like about this program is that the idle time will open up opportunity for other people to use it. What I hear a lot of, especially the younger generation who wants to buy an electric car, electric vehicle, is that they don't have a place to charge it, right? Whether it's at home or their apartment or whether it's at their place of work. So I'd be interested in to see if there's a trend that shows that and the messaging to our folks here at the county that, by the way, we will have opportunity. If they see only 18 or 10, or maybe they only see 5 or 6 charging stations, that may not be the encouragement they need when they see the parking lot is, or that stall's being used, right? Or it's got a carport. So I see the opportunity for more utilization, but any kind of data, later, not today, but any kind of data on what that usage has been and see if the rescue is a trend upwards, I'd like to see.
Like I said, per the note, we have 5 hours and 47 minutes per day per unit, basically, is what we're averaging. So it's not 8 hours a day yet,
Right.
but as we install more, plus those costs that are being paid are going to go into the pot of money to all the wiring is from a building. So we have all those, so we can actually reduce the building costs annually. So we'll know that the hours of charging, what the charging occurred at each of those buildings.
Okay.
So the county isn't paying for it; it's paid for by the user.
Yeah, and thank you, Commissioner. We can absolutely bring trends back and show you maybe on a quarterly basis if those usages have increased or decreased.
Yeah, I mean, I'm figuring like just 5, 10 years, or because I remember when PSB was built and those charging stations were there, we had our own vehicles in there, and I don't know if that fleet has grown or shrunk or whatnot, but we had a number of electric vehicles that were parked there, idle, as well. So, okay, I'd love to see the data. Thanks.
Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, what kind of plugs are we essentially using? Because it's interesting to me, I was listening to NPR on the way over, and we're having some federal shifts, but it also mentioned that the car makers were really making the cars that were specifically kind of more of a Tesla model as opposed to any other model.
So basically, you
What's going
have.
on with that? Yeah.
You have you have levels 1, 2, and 3. A level 1 is basically you're at home and you can go ahead and plug in your 110 outlet to your car, and it's a very slow charge, takes almost all night. Ours are all level 2s. So we have a faster charge that we could go ahead and usually, most cars, it matters on the battery size and all, in a few hours we can charge up the level 2s. 3s are like quick charge and, in an hour you can go ahead and get a full charge. We have the level 2 chargers. So it takes a few hours, but it's the mid-range.
Yeah. But is there some competition in the marketplace between, that's kind of what that was the impression I got after what I listened to today, that
Well, the
there's a
Teslas.
market, there's like a market, and that some businesses, they're trying it, but they're more finicky, and the conversation was about how much time it took to repair or get the
Sure.
charging station versus,
So how long it takes you to go ahead and charge your vehicle?
yeah.
Yeah, if you're going to Fred Meyer's, maybe you want to get it charged in an hour and you want a quick charge. We're in the mid-range there, so most of the units out there are at level 2, similar to what we have.
Interesting.
I mean, if you're doing it Centralia or Wilsonville or something, they're probably going more to the 3s because they want the faster and the turn,
Okay.
the units.
What vendor do we use for the charging stations? I mean,
standards?
What vendor do we use
ChargePoint.
for the, pardon me?
ChargePoint is the vendor that, the manufacturer for the units.
Yeah.
And we have, ChargePoint is the one, and they're the ones that we pay the operating fees to for the system. So you put in the card or you have your phone, and it charges your card, and then we get money from them on that. But it's ChargePoint is the name of the company.
Okay.
Good, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you very much.
Would you please make a motion to approve the request?
Oh, it's a motion, yes, it is.
So moved.
Second?
Commissioner Savas has moved, we approve the fees for county electric vehicle charging stations, and Commissioner Schrader has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Would the clerk please take the poll?
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Commissioner West. Aye. Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Madam Chair.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, an update on Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program, or LEAD program. We have staff from the District Attorney's Office and Health, Housing, Human Services to give you an update and answer your questions. And they are Vahid Brown from H3S and Bill Stewart from the District Attorney's Office.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners.
Welcome.
Thank you. Again, for the record, Vahid Brown with Health, Housing and Human Services, Housing and Community Development Division. And Bill?
Bill Stewart, Clackamas County DA's office.
Just here this morning to provide you an update about the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program. A little bit of background about Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion. It's a program partnership that started in 2018 between Health, Housing and Human Services, the District Attorney's Office, and the Sheriff's Department. Bill and I were the partners from two of those respective organizations that started this program, and we worked with our Sheriff's Department colleague, Lieutenant Graham Phelan, who is now enjoying a well-deserved retirement. The Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program was started in a period of time when the county had very few programs and services providing street outreach and no formal mechanisms or partnerships between the homelessness response system and our law enforcement partners. So LEAD, as we call it, was a really transformative program for the county. It brought street outreach for the first time really in a significant capacity to the county, and that street outreach was linked by definition with law enforcement partnerships. So our law enforcement partners are on the street all of the time, 24/7, responding to calls out in the community, aware of issues, aware of individuals experiencing homelessness who need connections to services, and law enforcement did not have those tools prior to this partnership to make those connections. Law enforcement could arrest someone for a crime related to their homelessness, but not, as we agreed, really resolve the underlying issues that were causing those public safety concerns. The program was started on a pilot basis with Central City Concern. 2 years later, we did a solicitation for a partner to continue the program, and Central City Concern competed for and successfully was awarded the contract to continue the program. 2 weeks ago, Central City Concern informed the department that they had been having kind of chronic challenges in hiring and maintaining staff adequate to provide these services in the program as required by the contract. And so Central City Concern has opted not to continue the program beyond April 1st. So Central City Concern notified us it will not seek to renew its contract at the end of this fiscal year, and will be winding down its programming by April 1st. So Bill and I are here to provide this update. I just wanted to give you some context about this. Central City Concern, as I said, was born in the county in a very different county with respect to our programs and services. This was before Measure 110, and it was before the supportive housing services resources allowed us to rapidly and dramatically expand our outreach capacities. The foundation that we built with LEAD for law enforcement agency partnership in conducting street outreach, all of our subsequent outreach programs were built on that foundation. So all of our street outreach is already and now coordinated with law enforcement partnerships. We have a mechanism with the Sheriff's Department and law enforcement agencies in the county for officers and folks responding in the community to request street outreach from our department and our partners in the nonprofit community, of which we have 6. Central City Concern withdrawing their program capacity does not create a gap in the sense of our coordination with law enforcement and street outreach. It creates a gap only specific to that program, and the budgeted funds will be used to fill any gaps in our program capacity for street outreach. So that's a little bit of the context from where this came from. Central City Concern has let us know they are going to be winding down their program. They remain a partner with Clackamas County. They continue to operate 2 alcohol and drug-free communities, Town Center Courtyards and Chez Ami. Those are long-standing housing programs serving people experiencing homelessness. Bill Stewart, as a co-founder of LEAD in Clackamas County, is here to speak from the DA's perspective about the status of our system of outreach and its engagement with law enforcement.
Welcome, Bill.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. As Vahid said, LEAD was transformative for us. We had never had that sort of outreach in our community and tied to partnership with law enforcement. It transformed the way we address chronic homelessness and substance abuse in that cohort, I guess you would call it. I'm sad to see LEAD go, but the great news is that the LEAD model has been imprinted in our county. It is it's part of the deflection program we put together. And so I'm very confident that we're going to continue to connect with and help folks that are experiencing homelessness and are causing challenges in our community by getting them housed, partnering with law enforcement, and partnering with the people that Vahid mentioned. When we built the deflection model here in our county, we based it on that model being just widespread throughout the county, not just within the urban core, but also out in the rural parts. And it's taking that LEAD model, and it's just become how we do business here.
Do you expect LEAD will come back? Do we still have it? Do you still refer to any of it, or is it gone and we totally have the deflection?
We essentially have 2 separate systems that reinforce each other. The deflection conditional discharge model is based on that new statute. Right. It's the same population we've been working with for some time.
Thank you, Bill. I guess what I'm trying to get in my mind, are we going to see funding requests for LEAD and funding requests for Diversion 2, knowing that there's 2 maybe competing programs or not competing programs? I guess that's my question. What does it look like going forward? And if we don't have Central City Concern, are we seeking another cohort to run this?
Yes, thank you, Chair. That's a great question. So with the, as Bill said, the diversion, the law enforcement diverting people who are experiencing homelessness from arrest and prosecution and incarceration and towards engagement with services, that specific programming is now deflection. Deflection is that. And LEAD was only that until Measure 110, because LEAD was designed to focus on possession of a controlled substance, criminal charges, and officers that were going to make a possession of controlled substance criminal charge could make a diversion to a LEAD case manager. Now deflection takes the place of that. When Measure 110 came into effect, we no longer had possession of a controlled substance as a criminal act. It was decriminalized under Measure 110. And so the LEAD program used law enforcement partnerships to identify folks who would be best served by case management. But it wasn't a pre-charge diversion anymore. That the predicate for that pre-charge diversion went away when Measure 110 kind of decriminalized possession. So as far as the specific programmatic kind of partnership where the DA, the Sheriff's Department, and our human services partners identify a person where there's a criminal nexus and deflect them to engagement with services, that is the deflection program. The larger model of our outreach system, which works closely with law enforcement. Law enforcement says, there's someone who's camping in the woods over here. We need an outreach person to connect them to services. That is sound. And insofar as the gap, now that we have a few fewer, right, that, as I said, Central City Concerned struggled to hire and maintain staff. So there's not a large gap in staff capacity that's leaving with Central City Concerned winding down. But to the extent that there is, that will be already budgeted funding redistributed to other program areas to fill that gap.
So are you saying LEAD is just going to automatically, over time, disappear?
For the time being, yes, deflection takes its place as the LEAD was the deflection is very much like, and Bill said it was based on LEAD as we established it in 2018. So now we have this deflection program. It is being.
For as long as deflection is going to be funded.
Right.
Because it's temporary. It's somewhat temporary. You're waiting for the next legislature to decide what to do. So it's kind of putting our really good LEAD program, I think, in jeopardy. We're assuming that the legislature is going to come back and fund the diversion program based on the data they're going to get for the counties, of which we've operated a very short amount of time on that. So it's a conundrum. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, a few questions. I vaguely, not accurately, recall the conversation about, I don't know, was it budget appropriation, and some of these monies were divvied up and LEAD was part of that. I've got a portion of the funding, whatever that was. I remember. So my question goes towards, are the resources that are currently dedicated from that funding stream to LEAD are being now directed towards deflection? Yes, no?
No.
Okay, so what happens with the funds?
So the funds that are currently dedicated to LEAD are supportive housing services funds and a small part of county general fund. Those will continue to be used for the budgeted purposes of outreach, navigation, and supportive housing case management. Those are the program components of LEAD's current contract. So those funds will remain budgeted and committed to those activities.
Okay. I'd like to get not today, but I'd like to get a clear picture of that budgetary change, and because I do know that law enforcement DA's portion was one and our internals was another. So how that was divvied up in that block funding way back, I'd like to better understand, but not today. Again, I applaud you all for all the great work you've done. Kind of seem to be taking the lead in a couple areas, and we have, good results to show for it. So kudos to, everyone involved here. I had one other question here.
We can come back, Commissioner Savas. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, thank you, gentlemen, for all of your good work in this valuable program. Should diversion no longer be funded at some point in time, do you have a contingency plan for reinstituting LEAD and a possible funding source for it, just in your back pocket?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question, Commissioner Scholl? I apologize.
Okay. So you know how it is with Salem with funding. So if diversion is no longer funded by the state, do you have a contingency plan for reinstituting the LEAD program and a potential source of funding for that?
That is a great question. Yes. So the deflection programming, as I kind of answered the chair's question, what we had called LEAD in 2018, we're now calling kind of deflection, and it's funded by the state.
I meant to say deflection, not diversion.
I think yes. I think I
Thank you.
understood where you were coming from. The state funding now, which may, is dependent on ongoing appropriations by the legislature. So if that is withdrawn, do we have a source of funds locally that we could continue that program type? And the answer is yes. The LEAD, the funding that was committed to LEAD was committed to accomplishing programmatically what is right now being accomplished through the state-funded deflection program. And if that state funding were withdrawn, I'm confident that we have the partnerships in the DA's office and the Sheriff's Department to bring LEAD back, would that to become necessary by that loss of funding.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, the other question I had was, I hope my concern about the labor pool and a number of, I'm going to call this an industry, right? Because there's a breakdown of many professions and skill sets. So I just hope this is not, so to speak, a bellwether indicator of a shortfall of people to take these jobs in general. I do know that their reach and scale is like no other. So I have a lot of respect for what Central City Concern does, but I just hope that there's not a labor shortage, and if so, maybe in the future, I'd like to have a better idea what skill sets that or areas in which maybe the pipeline is diminishing and there's no longer a flow of people coming into the industry. Because I think as we scale up in the supportive housing services, my concern is there's probably more money than there is people, and the right skills to do all that work. So lastly, the other part that is bothersome for me is just what the next 10 years look like with whether it's a state funding or supportive housing services or less supportive housing services, whatever that may be. I think that is uncertain, and it's hard to really build a system with an unknown, unstable, uncertain funding streams that make it all happen. So it's a patchwork, and I'm just hoping we don't get caught with a major investment and that we have to just step back from it as a result of someone pulling back or a agency pulling back on our funding. So again, no question in there, just a concern.
I think we all have that concern on all of our programs right now. But thank you for all your good work. We look forward to seeing you again, and thank you for the update on this. I know we've all had questions on what was going to happen. Thank you.
Chair.
Gary.
Next, review of your board business meeting agenda for this Thursday, November 14, 2024. You will have a public hearing, the second reading of the ordinance about the ambulance service plan. You'll have all the consent agenda items you discussed today, your normal course of business. There was an item you discussed today in executive session that's going to move directly to the consent agenda this Thursday as well. So we'll add that to the agenda as you directed us this morning. That is the agenda. If you have any questions on any item, please let me or staff know, and we'll answer it for you prior to Thursday. Next, Commissioner Savas would like to discuss Clackamas County Code, Section 2.11.070.
Yeah. This is a request coming out of our abbreviated discussion that we were going to have on issues late Thursday. I know that Commissioner Scholl had a call, a good one. Congratulations again, Commissioner Scholl,
Thank you very
as a
much.
grandfather. And I know that Commissioner West had to step out as well. So I printed a copy, and 2.11.070 is the specific ordinance that was adopted as a result of some work that was done in 2006, 7, 8, 9, as this was being implemented from a 3-commission board to a 5-commission board. And the discussions were to allow, essentially, if you read that code, it's basically one paragraph combined, that the chair shall establish the agenda, which today we have an agenda. That's what the agenda means. And 2 commissioners can add something to the agenda at any time, but particularly over the objection of the chair, if the chair objects to that. And so just building on the conversation I really wanted to have on governance, which we did not have, which I hope we will, my concern is that there's an interpretation. I feel as though that myself and my colleagues are somewhat disenfranchised from what's established as an ordinance by the voters to allow 2 commissioners to put something on the agenda. I won't list all of the things that have been asked over the years to be put on the agenda, but certainly the one that was spoke to on Thursday is pretty bothersome for me, that it be kicked off, frankly, to a different commission altogether. So I feel disenfranchised. I think we have violated, essentially, the ordinance by not allowing 2 commissioners to actually exercise that and put something on the agenda. But the agenda is mentioned in here, the same word, under the same context. I don't think it's separate, right? I don't think that scheduling it in perpetuity, to it just gets kicked off in foreverland is not what was intended by the voters. So I'm asking for a remedy.
Commissioner Scholl?
So over the years, there's been several instances where I wanted something put on issues. I mentioned it it was very easy, but there are also issues that everybody in the board was looking forward to hearing about. The idea for two commissioners to bring up an item that they want put on issues. Last Thursday, Administrator Schmidt, you made a comment that the two commissioners could request that an issue be added to the issues agenda. But the chair, it was her call, it was the chair's call to schedule what issues meeting that would be on. And I'd like to recommend maybe we consider this, and that is two commissioners agree that an issue has got to come up on the issues agenda. That then is brought to the attention of the county administrator and the chair. If it's something that flies, it ends up the next week on issues, no problem. If it comes from an objection from the chair because of, maybe an issue that is coming up in the near future that might have an effect on the issue that was brought forward, and the chair wants to move it sometime into the future, then I think there needs to be a mechanism for the original two commissioners who brought it up to say, okay, the chair has recommended that it be not heard in the next week or on the short term, but moved to a different time in the future. And so that the two commissioners that brought it up initially could consider that and then potentially override the chair's decision on it. Because the idea that if two commissioners can bring an issue and request that it go on the issues, but it then could be, there's not a mechanism for overriding a chair's objection to it, then really it kind of negates the whole purpose of two commissioners putting something on issues. So I think that might be the mechanism that we can all come to an agreement.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, because a lot
I
of...
never have it, by the way.
Right. And I would say most of the time, two commissioners bring an issue up. In my experience, it gets on the issues the next week. But again, if there's an issue, then it should come back for after the chair has recommended an extension, or maybe, for example, doesn't want, not this chair, but a future chair, not want to hear the issue brought up, then it has to come back to those initiating two commissioners for a final decision. Otherwise, it negates the whole idea of two commissioners bringing something to issues.
Yep.
I'm going to interject here, Commissioner Savas, since I'm the topic of discussion today.
You're not, actually, it's the code.
In our discussion last week, this is what I heard. It was quite heated. I think maybe you were quite emotional about that, thinking I was trying to stop some process, and I was not. What I heard from you is that you had an issue with the governance and that you wanted to take something to the voters. I heard that you wanted the governance model to be either ratified, codified, or changed by the voters. And what my response to you was, I think that's something for the next board and the next chair to consider, and that's why I said no. Now, that's how I remember it. I haven't gone back and listened to it because I'm not ready at this stage of the rest of my term here to bind further commissions with something that they may have to reverse. I think that's a waste of really time and resources for our county staff. So that's what I heard you say. You wanted voters to vote on a governance issue. Now, when I'm gone, you all can have any discussions you want about the governance issue. That's what I heard. My intent is always to try to allow commissioners to have what they want to do and say. As the chair, there are, as Gary knows and Jane, a ton of issues that we deal with. And we put issues on. because of the time, and then sometimes staff takes them off, or we're not ready, and we put them on. And so every department goes through this. And so scheduling this may not be as an absolute science as one would think. I try to accommodate hundreds of people in this county. And if you feel slighted about that, I apologize. It was not my intent to silence any commissioner for bringing anything forward. You know, I don't know what you want to do. And I asked last week, do you have something in writing? Well, what you brought for us today on the code, I'm not in objection to the code, and I don't know that I have violated the code. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, getting back to the point, I'm sorry your memory is failing you today, Chair, but I want to make it perfectly clear that the conflating of issues and agenda, whether it's semantics or not, there's two different things. So Commissioner Scholl, you said issues more than you said the word agenda. They are distinctly two different things. Gary has respectfully, and thank you, allowed me and anyone else here to put anything on issues. I appreciate that solely. And I think the understanding was, the discussion we had during board rules was, two commissioners could, if they want to put something on the agenda, bring it up under issues and then hopefully get it scheduled. If there's an objection from the chair, then the ordinance steps in and says the two commissioners or the chair objects to put it on the agenda, not on issues, but on the agenda, then it shall go on the agenda, right? That is what the purpose of that ordinance is. It empowers the chair to set the agenda. It empowers two commissioners to add something to the agenda over the objection of the chair. That's the point, right? Now, the governance thing that I brought up is something that's been 2 years long. Now, going to the voters was not the meat of the situation. That was if you look at the sequence of the discussion, that was a latter, very brief 3-second conversation, right? The goal of the governance discussion that I foresaw was putting together a committee of people to look at the governance of the county and figure out what adjustments, if any, are worthy of changes. And if there are changes, that, you know, whether or not, and I probably suggested it would, go to the voters. It wasn't about anything going to the voters today or next month or in January. It would take a lot of time for a committee to do the work. Initiating the conversation would basically begin with a committee to identify what's working in this 3-commissioner or 5-commissioner change. There's been talk about being in zones. There's been talk about should we be a charter? Should we be able to hire the clerk or should we be elected clerk? So on and so forth. A lot of things around that. So these conversations I think are important, and waiting 2 years, okay, does not have excuse. There's no excuse for that.
So I'm going to
clearly there really is a governance issue, and this is one great example. I think Thursday was a prime example that is partially broken.
So you keep bringing up these 2 years, and I object to the accusations that you're making against me, that I am not listening, that something happened or was said in my office 2 years ago. I challenge any commissioner to remember anything that was said privately in their office 2 years ago. And Commissioner Savas, your memory is not infallible. Okay, I never heard anything last week about setting up a committee to discuss that. Nothing. And I asked you, what is the specific problem? Can you bring something in writing? Can you propose something? And I haven't heard anything. You know, commissioners, if you want to do...
You spoke over me like you're speaking over me today.
Okay, you're speaking over me now. You're interrupting me, Commissioner Savas.
You're putting words in my mouth, Chair.
Well, you are. Well, you have accused me of many things, and I am in the position of having to defend my actions as chair. You don't like that. Too bad. I am in defense of myself here and how I run these meetings. You have been challenging the chair probably since the creation of the chair position. I understand that. You have run for chair position many times and have lost. You don't like, I don't believe, myself, Jim Bernard, John Ludlow, you've always, and Charlotte Lehan, you've always challenged the chair position because you think meetings should be run another way. Well, the voters have been clear up to this point that the chair runs the meetings and sets the agenda. If you all want to go set up a committee, fine, go set up the committee, but it's not going to be done. this year in time, because if you look at our schedule, we have other work that we've been contracted and we are charged to do to finish for the end of the year. If you and Mark want to go ahead and initiate a committee, ask staff to bring it forward, I don't have a problem with that. What I do have a problem with is you're trying to bully me into making a decision based on false accusations about my performance as chair, and I will not tolerate that. Now, if you want to go do something with another commissioner, you go right ahead, okay? But that's the way it is. Commissioner Schrader.
So, moving forward, what I'm looking at, because I was here when we did the 3-member and moved to 5, and what we did, we had put together a committee. I know Vern Duncan was chair. We can probably find the original list of people. And it sounds as if you want to go through that same process, because as I read this, and I wasn't here in 2011, came back in 2012, on or after January 1st, 2011, and before June 1st, 2011, the BPC shall review the governance structure of the Board of County Commissioners and shall determine whether to propose to county electors is it a different model, right, or tweaking it. That's what I recall, but I was not here. So what you're telling me at this time, this particular board did not ever fulfill this portion of the code. Is that correct? Yeah, I mean, because, and now, I think what you're trying to do, Commissioner, is, okay, this has not been done, and it needs to be done. I think the question is the timing of when it should be done. And we're not going to have enough time, okay, with the transition we're going to go through to do this with this. I don't see it with this particular set of colleagues. But, so is that, do you want to do something before there's a transition? Or, I guess I want to know, what is the outcome you want to see here? Obviously, I personally think this has to happen. As I read this in the code, it was pretty clear. But, and I don't understand why it wasn't done, you know, and I'm talking 2.11.090A. So is that really what the, I don't know if it's about a particular chair, but it just seems it's been the timing of this that's been the rub the whole time, and it should have been done sooner than later. Is that what I'm hearing?
If I can, may I reply, Chair?
Your light is on, Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, go ahead.
So to answer Commissioner Schrader's question, partially, some of that work was done.
Okay.
So Mr. Madcore, you know, he was part of that, reminded us of that. Part of that work was done. And what some of the committee members have said and done was, when it was done, is that, hey, give it more time. You know, they looked at one thing, which was the districts. I think they looked at the other. There was a couple things they looked at, but they didn't look at the entire thing. They said, give it more time to see how it works out.
Okay, so that was their recommendation. Again, I was not here at the time. So
So-
the recommendation was, let's just see how it works. And now you want to revisit it. Or you're strongly suggesting we revisit it because enough time has passed.
Right.
So there was some work done.
There was some. It was, I think it was partially done. So, I do want to, I object to the mischaracterization made by the chair here today. Can't invent something that didn't happen or wasn't said or wasn't intended. And so what was intended is mine and mine own, not what someone else says it is. So I simply I brought this to the previous chairs. Some did not take it personal, some have. And I brought this to Chair Smith almost 4 years ago. And Chair indicated that she wasn't interested in that. Actually, I don't even think we got into a deep enough discussion into what and why and how. But I just think it needs to be discussed. And I think that we have seen that there have been some challenges with that. It's not about the people. Every chair, past chair of this commission from 2009 forward is different. They're not the same. haven't objected to the chairs. It's been about the question of refining this. There have been things come up about, well, should we not have a hired clerk or whatnot? Should we be a charter? All these things have been in question, and yet it seems to come back to the chair. I ran for chair several cycles ago. The last 2 cycles, I haven't run for chair. So that's not the issue here. I have no desire and have no plans on becoming the chair of this commission.
Thank you.
But however, having this discussion for several years, they're trying to get this discussion happening. It has to start somewhere. And I think it was a perfect opportunity just to get the discussion underway. It doesn't matter who the chair is, who the commission is, having the discussion underway. That's what I advocate for. That's what Commissioner Scholl has agreed to. But I just want to give Commissioner Scholl an opportunity to clarify whether he said issues or agenda. They're 2 different things, and it's specifically the agenda that you and I have discussed in the past.
Yeah.
I'm going to call on Jane. Would you like to opine on this?
Well, there's a lot to unpack here. I think we're talking about a couple of different processes. So the first thing, and what I observed last week was, I think, calling on the board rules that the board just recently adopted. Commissioner Savas, I think, asked for an issue on governance. At that time, and my recollection could be faulty, I know my memory is failing, but I don't believe he received a second from Commissioner Scholl, just because of some text that Commissioner Scholl was receiving at the time. So I don't think that that actually was moved forward. Today, what I'm hearing is that there is some consensus around about placing an item on an agenda. And so the terms, I think, are really important, and I'm not sure they've been fleshed out. On Section D, which is straight from the code, it says the chair shall establish the agenda 2 or more commissioners may place. What I don't hear is schedule. And our practice has been that the chair sets the schedule. So something gets moved forward. The question is the timing, as Commissioner Schrader said. It's really a timing issue. So what I'm kind of hearing today is a request, what I'm interpreting this to be is a request for a policy session on governance having to do with this ballot measure establishing the chair in 2011. And then the question becomes the timing of that policy session. And what I'm hearing is, again, some consensus that the timing of that policy session should be in the new year, if I'm correct, when the new chair comes on board. Is that a fair recap?
It's a fair by me, because I don't know how the work is going to policy session be teed up and in time for that. Anything else, Jane?
That's what I have right now.
Mr. Scholl?
Yes, okay. So, again, it's important that this discussion is not about any one particular person, in my opinion. It's about just defining it a little detail so that things might work in the future a little better. So let me see if I understand this. One, we would have to identify the recommended modified language for paragraph 1.11.070, first of all. Then get that to issues and discuss it. And then if approved by the board, it would go to a policy session for discussion. Then it's got to go, if approved there, it's got to go to public hearings, correct? Okay, so and your public hearings have to be 30 days apart, as I recall. Okay, so that whole process right there is over a couple months at least, good in the best case scenario. So I think maybe where we need to start is just a new recommended verbiage for this paragraph I just stated that would include a little bit more information on how the date time is determined for an item to go on the agenda. It's really as simple as that, I think. And then, once we have that verbiage, we can kind of take it from there. But I agree that we have so much going on right now in the remaining time in the year, and I think it's on the 18th of December, the recess begins. So we only have really about 5 weeks to take care of action, and of course, next week's a write-off because of the AOC conference. So anyway, that's my recommendation.
So 2.11.070 is part of the county code, correct?
Yes, it is.
So, Mark, the addition of your language on that is fine, except we can't change the county code that fast.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. That's what I'm saying, you know.
And I'm concerned about the expectations of this setting up a policy session and binding the next commission, because the next chair can do whatever. I think, commissioners, it would behoove us to take care of some really important county business that we must get done this year. If any commissioner wants to discuss this and bring it forward at a later date, I think you're more than free to do that. I've never said otherwise. I'm sorry that the remainder of my tenure here has resolved around how we do business in this county, because we have accomplished much. We have probably accomplished more in this last 4 years of business in this county than any previous commission put together, and I will stand on that record. Thank you very much. Commissioner Savas, Commissioner Schull.
Yeah, well, Chair, I will acknowledge that there is a lot of accomplishment, as you said, and you deserve, as we all do, credit for all of that. So that's appreciated. So again, this is not a personal thing. This is a mechanism that, regardless who the chair has been difficult. I'm not suggesting any language changes to 211. I'm not suggesting anything specific. The goal Thursday, not today, I don't want to conflate the two. The goal Thursday was to get the conversation started. So what are the issues? We could start identifying that, maybe a committee. That was Thursday. Today, what came apparent Thursday was that this code, 21170, okay, we were being disenfranchised from that. Not allowed to do that. That's not new. That goes back to each time, Commissioner, for example, as an example, not the only one, Commissioner Schull and I have asked to have this put on the agenda, has not been, months, years, and I go back to at least 2 years. So what I'm bringing here today is the issue of 2.11.070 not being availed to 2 commissioners, disenfranchising 2 commissioners, and that is a violation of code. That is the issue today, and governance is not the topic. That was the topic for Thursday. But what I'm asking for is a remedy, and I will argue that agenda and scheduling, is auxiliary, not the primary driver. The primary driver is what the code says, the agenda, right? Reasonably, sure, you know, but if it's over the objection of the chair, be mindful. If only one person sets the schedule and has say over the schedule, then that's an incorrect interpretation. That's a mechanism being thrown out to thwart the efforts to put it on the agenda. So therefore, it is logical to assume that if our 2 employees, the county administrator and our legal counsel, do not put it on the agenda, then it's up to the 2 commissioners who are objecting, who are trying to override the objection of the chair, who's not going to do it, to put it on the agenda. One of those 2 has to prevail here.
Okay, thank you. Before I go to Commissioner Schull, I'm going to say yet again, Commissioner Savas, your accusations are unfounded and they are not realistic. There were not 2 votes on Thursday to proceed with anything. I don't know that there's 2 votes here today to do this. But even if there are 2 votes, I'm going to tell you, we need to be realistic about time management and the business we have forward and trying to bind a previous commission to do something. We've seen this in politics before. Commissioner Savas, you know, you say you have this perfect memory. Well, we know no human has a perfect memory of what happened 2
I
years
did
ago.
not say that, Chair.
of
Come
all
on.
this.
You're
And
violating the board rules of being respectful.
And you're interrupting me on board rules of not being respectful, and we don't interrupt anything. And it's amazing to me that when somebody calls you out on one of your statements, you get all mad, and you get huffy and puffy, and you walk around. So I just want the people watching that today know that there is a pattern there. Commissioner Scholl, you may have your remarks.
Yeah, I'll be real quick. Yeah, I just want to make sure that anybody watching the meeting today, this discussion we're having is on a general policy question. It is not specific to any member of the board, and is not specific to Chair Smith either. This is something that merits looking at, so that future boards will run all that much more smoothly. And so, again, Chair Smith, thank you for your work. I know it's not easy being chair, but I appreciate it. And we cannot allow a small issue to cloud, all the things you've done over the last 4 years. Like, it has been a trying 4 years. COVID, ice storms, windstorms, fires, everything except for a plague of locusts and crocodiles that we've had to deal with. So you can be proud of
Truly
all the
noted.
things we've accomplished and that you've accomplished.
Well, Commissioners, I think that we have said enough today. We are adjourned.